What's good, good people? Welcome to the He Talks Podcast. I'm your guy, Daryl. On the He Talks Podcast, we talk life, legacy, and purpose. We believe it's our goal that every single man should live a life of purpose, a life of destiny, a life of drive, and ultimately leave a legacy for a better tomorrow. On today's episode, it's kind of a late night episode of the He Talks Podcast, but I was going on ESPN. I've just been following this Celtics situation, and not going to kick the brother while he's down. I'm not going to name the head coach. Again, nothing that he did, as far as we know of, was illegal, so I'm not going to put him on blast, but I just thought it was a good learning opportunity. I can't remember who said it. I don't know, was it Ben Franklin or who it was, but it was like, fools make mistakes and wise people learn from other people's mistakes, etc., etc. But it mentioned the thought process of us learning from other people's mistakes. And again, not this brother didn't do anything wrong, not kicking him while he's down, not trying to disrespect him. But I thought it was important for us to talk about professional development and how you should carry yourself. If you haven't watched the story, literally the Boston Celtics, which is one of the most historic franchises, in all of the world, probably top five most historic sports franchise in all of North America. The coach has been suspended for the 2022-2023 upcoming basketball year. The year in which the Celtics were just in the finals the previous year, and some, not all people, but some people had them repeating and potentially winning the chip. Granted, what happens in Golden State and other basketball teams. And in a sport that's already laced with controversy amongst many things, this is just one of many that showed. And if you don't know what happened, basically the head coach dated somebody, a female staff member who was on the team or in the executive office, or somebody who was working for the organization. And granted, you can date people, you can do all the things that you want to do, but it's just extremely important when you're talking about professional development to do certain things. I heard a YouTuber say it, and it kind of reminded me of an old statement that my granddad made. And if you haven't watched that video, practical advice from my granddad, but the YouTuber, my granddad, basically used the term, and granted, this is geared more towards 18 and up when I say this statement, but it was like, don't dip your pen in company ink. What he basically meant was, don't date or sleep around with anybody who worked on your job. Basically, what that means. And I've heard my granddad say, I've heard, a guy who was on YouTube, I think like some professional development, some kind of dating coach, but he talked about like the very bad things that can go south when you try to date on your job, or date within a group, or date within certain sectors that you shouldn't. Granted, you're around people close, you're gonna, if in your lifetime, if you work a lot of jobs, or work in a lot of different areas, or work in different avenues or venues, the temptation to want to date a coworker or somebody who works, or somebody who's close to working around you, could come up. I'm not going to say it does not, especially if you're young and you're living life and you want to do those things. It could come up. But is it wise to always act upon your feelings or your emotions or your desires? No. It's not smart. Financially, it's not smart if you want to act upon your desires. You're trying to buy something. Emotionally, energy-wise, romantically, sometimes it's just not the right place and not the right time to do so. I remember I used to work at Target my sophomore and junior year. I remember we were doing training. Later at Target, they're like, relationships amongst colleagues does happen. If that does happen and that person is inside the same department, notify a manager. So like Target literally had in their policy, if you want to date a coworker and it's consensual amongst two partners and both y'all are okay with dating each other, it was cool. Like it was cool in the game, as long as you went to a manager. And if anybody worked at Target, back me up on this and tell, at least in my city, in my state, that was a part of the training video, which is very awkward to watch amongst a group of people. But nonetheless, you could do that. But for this particular reason, the coach did not technically neglect or make any mistakes that were illegal. Even a step further, he didn't really break any league rule laws. Like the league didn't say you cannot date a coworker. The NBA did not say you cannot date a coworker. It's the Boston Celtics that have in their policy that if you work for our organization, coworkers, I guess, cannot date, or certain coworkers on certain statutes and certain levels cannot date. And as a result of that, he's suspended for the year. Again, granted, that's a bad way to be suspended. And not gonna get into the personal life because it's on a moral tip. We could go that way, but again, not dissing the bro, not talking about it. I just thought it was just a good way for us as young men to use it as a learning lesson that as you begin to go into certain spaces, Granted, like I said again, I worked everywhere. I worked at a department store. I was literally the only male that worked there, and would get advances. Like people would approach me, and I would try to navigate that, but learning to not date on the job. I mean, I worked several places where a lot of times you're one of the few guys that are there. For my young bros who are doing internships at a college campus, or internships at you're in college, or you're a young professional, you just get into your career. The worst thing that can happen is for you to get a reputation for being like a player or dating around, or you just letting people who work on your job in a certain intimate space of your life. I can even tell you, when I'm even doing like certain company events where there's free food, open bar, etc., I literally will snack. I won't touch any alcohol, which I really don't even drink anyway, but I won't even touch that stuff because, again, I don't want my supervisors there. When I'm at home, I eat the way I want to eat. I eat with my hands. I don't have no tie on. I'm just chilling and relaxing. But when I'm at work, my work self is my work self. And then when I'm off the clock, I move on and do something different. Reminds me of that old meme that was like work you versus 501 you. And it was like Shannon Sharp with the suit on. He was all smiles. And then at 501, they showed Shannon like getting in his car. He got a do-rag on. He got black and mild and smile. It was hilarious. It just reminded me of that old meme. But it's just like, you know, we just have to just be very mindful about, intentional about how we move in certain spaces. And I think it's extremely important, again, as young men, to realize that, hey, that's really not a good look. It reminds me of the old movie Boomerang with Eddie Murphy. He dated a lot and was merging his personal and professional life, and was trying to like date the women that would come through like the advertising agency. He was dating coworkers. He was doing all these things, and then I guess one woman like told on him and told all his secrets. And then he walked into the office one day, and like literally every woman inside of like the office was like laughing at him and like just going in on him basically. So it just, again, I think this is just a good way for us as young men to look at this situation and be like, we're not dissing this dude. Whatever he does is what he does in his free time, his personal life. But you can learn from it that as you're going to certain spaces, internships, job opportunities, even if you're a little bit older, you're on the more seasoned side, you're in your late 20s, your early 30s, and that clout and that status is starting to kick in, and dating and relationships is starting to be a little bit easier. And a lot of these dating coaches always talk about men get their value towards the later years. As you start to hit your 30s and 40s, you start to hit your stride, and everything that women are looking for, they're attracted to you. Now, it's just smart to think about, whether you're at the bottom of the food chain or at the top of the food chain, you got to carry yourself a certain way. Social media is even extremely important. You can't be on here talking about, I'm doing this, this, and the third, and then every 5 minutes, there's a picture of you with a different woman, or you're a financial advisor, but you're on there with wasting money and spending ridiculous amounts of money, and people don't trust you. Your personal trainer, I talked about that. And every 5 minutes you're on social media eating a hamburger or a donut or something, a Twinkie or a honey bun. Like, your image it means a lot. And the type of spaces that you're in and the type of spaces I'm believing that you can be in are extremely important. So when you're trying to realize that life and your goals and your purpose are greater than you, you have to deny yourself certain desires. And again, we talked about the Bible. That's really a lot of the time. What all the Bible really talks about in a lot of different chapters is just like denying yourself for the greater good, to sacrificing yourself for your purpose, doing all the things you can do to be the best person possible, denying your flesh or your lower self, and evolving into a different level where you got such good tunnel vision that you're able to block out the distractions and focus on the goal that's at hand. So again, I just thought about that. Just wanted to do this video on late night. Really didn't have like a specific way to really deliver that message. Only to say, number one, I can't judge. I don't know what happened in that situation. I'm not, attacking him, because there's nothing, as far as I know, that was criminal or illegal. I'm not the moral police. I can't talk about his personal life, but I can just talk about how your personal life, if you begin to blend it, can mess with your professional life. And it's good. One thing to have good connections. It's one thing to have a solid reputation. It's one thing to do all these things. But as one of my OGs always said, you can take 15 years to build a reputation, but it only takes 15 minutes to destroy it. So you just realize and just know that as you're matriculating into your professional development, whether it be an intern, entry level, mid, senior level, whatever, you have to be careful the way you move, particularly we as men, with the spotlight always on us, particularly us as black men with the spotlight always on us, always considered or viewed at this, wild or brute or whatever negative stereotype they try to use on black men. It's always important that we figure out how we move. And even if you own your own company or own business, you're your own personal trainer. You never want to be the personal trainer that dating your own clients. That's why I do not train anybody, like I say again, of that. I never date a client. I never do anything because I realize the importance of your name, your rep, and your brand. So think about those things as you're matriculating through life, how important it is, how you should always keep your personal, your professional, your professional. And I guess I always say, keep it pushing. 8 o'clock, you come correct. 5 o'clock, you come correct. When 5:01 gets here, you want to throw that do-rag on? I can't blame you. I can't judge you. But just realize every single thing you do on and off the clock does have consequences or can be reflected or viewed a certain way. So create your own narratives. Stay positive. Stay motivated. Live with purpose. Live with intentionality. This is He Talks Podcast. I'm your guy, Daryl. Until the next one, we're gone.